Welcome to Faith on Film with Isaac Hernandez and Holly McClure. Keeping you informed on faith and family entertainment.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Faith on Film. Holly, I know you are excited about today's guest, aren't you?
I'm very excited because he's a dear friend and he's the founding news director and manager editor for the EWTN network. He's been there for years doing that. I met him as a film critic doing that. He is also, of course, you've seen him with Laura Ingram. He's a co-host with Laura sometimes on Fox Network. And he has written adult books and children's books, also a children's series. It's the best-selling Will Wilder series. He also wrote, and I want to see, The Spider Who Saved Christmas. I remember seeing that book and reading it, actually. It's a wonderful children's book. But today, we're talking about his latest children's book. And what is it, Isaac?
The Magnificent Mischief of Tad Lincoln.
Raymond, welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you on. Not just talking about your book, but your life and you. I tell you, a lot going on with you.
It's endless. I'm on the endless, gerbil wheel. I just keep going round and round. But Ollie, I'm delighted to be with you both. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're talking about the book and much more, but The Magnificent Mischief of Tad Lincoln. Now, what a title for that book, right?
It's a magnificent title. Now, what inspired you to write this book?
I stumbled upon this story. I had covered the White House turkey pardon at the White House annually. And for those of you who don't know, every year they bring a pair of turkeys to the president, live turkeys, and he pardons them. Well, I asked during the Obama administration, during the Trump administration, where did this tradition come from? And nobody could really tell me. Some said Truman, some said it was JFK. All of that is untrue. This tradition, this beautiful holiday tradition, actually began with Tad Lincoln and his father, Abraham Lincoln. And when I discovered that, what I unearthed was this family story about finding hope in dark times, about the power of a child, not only in the life of a family, but in the life of a nation, and how love and forgiveness and mercy, which is what Abraham Lincoln showed his child over many years, it became embodied in this beautiful tradition and in Thanksgiving itself, which Abraham Lincoln was the president who made Thanksgiving a national holiday, put it at the end of the national calendar on the last Thursday of November. So there's lots of things bound up in this story. But as so many things in life, as so many origin stories, it usually begins in very small ways on the personal level. And that's what I discovered here.
Wow, I didn't even know that Lincoln did that with Thanksgiving. I bet a lot of people don't know that.
He did. I didn't either. I didn't realize that either. And it's all in the same year, Holly. 1863, the year he signs the Emancipation Proclamation.
Wow.
The same year he delivers the Gettysburg Address. That's the year he pardons his son Tad's turkey, which I may get into a little bit, but I don't want to spoil the story for your listeners and viewers. And it's the year he sets Thanksgiving as a national holiday at the end of November. And he did it for a particular reason. I'll read a little bit from the Declaration. He says, Thanksgiving should be a season of forgiveness and unity, penitence for our national perverseness and disobedience, fervently imploring the imposition of the Almighty hand to heal the wounds of the nation and to restore it to the full enjoyment of peace, harmony, tranquility, and union. So he really saw it as a season of mercy and forgiveness, not only in families, but neighbor to neighbor and throughout the country. And boy, should we focus on Thanksgiving in that way this year and maybe every year.
Wow.
We have lost that as a nation. We have lost that. Wow.
You bet.
I know. I know. Holly mentioned that, she didn't know that story. I had no idea of that. And I went to school when they still were teaching real history. Yeah, I know. Maybe I was asleep during that particular lesson or something, but I don't remember ever hearing about this whole story of Thanksgiving being basically, or the pardoning of the turkey being started back in Lincoln days. Now, what can we learn from that today?
Well, here's the beautiful thing, we find ourselves today in such a dark time, in such a tragic time. I think the real lesson here that the Lincolns teach is hope is always accessible. Hope is always within reach if you take the time to reach for it. In the case of Abraham Lincoln, you had a president who was losing the Civil War. He had just lost his son, Willie, his middle son. And his youngest son, Tad, is really the only child that remains in the house. And he and Tad become inseparable. What I discovered when I researched this story is many of Lincoln's contemporaries write in their diaries, Abe Lincoln continues to indulge this hellion of a child because Tad Lincoln was a prankster. He was a kid who would pull pranks on his dad. He would hitch goats to the back of dining room chairs and gallop through the East Room. He would dig up the rose gardens. He had a fort on the roof of the White House. So this was a child that brought mayhem with him. But it was magnificent. Look, this is why I call it the magnificent mischief, because it was magnificent. Because what I discovered time and time again, whenever Abraham Lincoln is near his son Tad, they describe him as being doubled over in neighing laughter. He was enjoying himself. And I realized Abraham Lincoln and Tad, the reason they were inseparable is Abraham Lincoln had a touchstone of joy and happiness and what was possible on the other side of the hellscape he was living through in that moment. So that's the real story here. And the gift that the father gives the son and the son gives the father is because they were inseparable. Tad saw the suffering in the world and how his father was extending mercy and forgiveness to people. In the evenings, and this is something that, who knew this was even possible? You couldn't do it today. But back in 1863, people would line up outside the White House and they would wait to get to Abraham Lincoln and plead their cases to him, cases of pardon, hoping that he would pardon their boys who abandoned the war field or return their property. And Tad Lincoln was sitting next to the desk and watched his father show mercy to all these people and write letters of pardon to them. So at a particular moment after his brother Willie dies, Tad befriends this turkey that was brought to the White House. And he teaches it tricks and he walks it on a leash and he teaches it to trot behind him. And then the day comes near Christmas, the White House chef grabs the turkey and takes it to the kitchen and breaks out the butcher knife. And you can imagine the reaction of Tad Lincoln. He totally freaks out. He grabs the turkey, runs up to his father's cabinet room and begs his father to extend a pardon to his turkey. That is the first turkey pardon. And again, his father does it. So now when I look at a Thanksgiving turkey, when I see that pardoning ceremony in the White House, and I'll bet you Joe Biden and none of the previous occupants even knew this story. But when I look at it, it's a reminder of mercy, forgiveness, and the power of one child in the life of a president and a nation. So it's kind of a living monument to the love of Abraham Lincoln and Tad Lincoln, that turkey pardon. So I hope the book and the story not only gives families a way into Thanksgiving and the holidays and a new way to see it, and certainly a historical moment that they have no understanding or appreciation of, but I hope whenever they look at those turkeys, they think of mercy and forgiveness in the Lincolns.
I don't know if I can eat turkey anymore after hearing this.
We may have to
Only
become
ham
vegetarians.
for you now, Ollie.
or a ham, yeah, a ham. I don't care about that, but that is a great story. Now, you know what? Way beyond really just a kid's book. I think that's for all ages. All adults will enjoy that too, and how they'll learn as well. And but, it's not just for Thanksgiving. I wish we could teach that to our children every day. I mean, did that change your perspective as a father when you were
of course.
This book?
Well, it reminds you of what's important. Abraham Lincoln kept Tad so close because he wanted him to be a part of his life. And I think it was a constant reminder of why he was fighting a war, why he was engaged in these controversies, because of the future that was literally walking hand in hand with him. And we have to remind ourselves, I think, as parents of that. You lose sight of that. You forget why you're doing what you're doing so many times. I think it's a constant reminder during the holidays and throughout the year of why we get together, the importance of coming together as a family. And look, this Turnabout Tales series, guys, I started writing it for HarperCollins and Zondervan because a turnabout tale, in my mind, is every young life in all of our lives. It's challenges faced, decisions made, and history turned. And all the stories have those elements in them. My first book was about Thomas Edison, whose mother rescued him. When he was 8 years old, he was thrown out of school, told he was an idiot and couldn't be taught. His mother takes him home and homeschools him. So that was the tale of a mother saving her son. This is the tale of a son saving his father. So I write these books so generations come into contact And it's that shared experience, the values shared, the insight shared after you read the book. That's where the memory comes. That's where the lesson comes. And that's really where whatever you're going to take into the future, it's those shared moments. That's all I'm trying to facilitate with these stories.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I love that. And you've written adult books too, right?
I have, yeah. I've written middle grade books, fantasy books, the Will Wilder series for Random House. I've written biographies, Mother Angelica's biography, and comedy books. So yeah, but this is, when I started touring for the Will Wilder book, which is a middle grade fantasy, kind of my Harry Potter, I discovered kids were not being taught the history that we talked about earlier, that we were taught in school. So many of these historic figures were being lost. And I thought, how can I make these young historic lives exciting for them and give kids an on-ramp so that they see themselves in these moments? And, Tad Lincoln was a kid who had a cleft palate. He wasn't a great student. He had learning difficulties. And yet he left a mark on his family and on the nation, a mark that continues today, a tradition that continues today, and that we're going to see very shortly. In the case of Edison, you had a child who probably had dyslexia, certainly ADHD, was dismissed by teachers, and yet the greatest inventor of all time. He's the reason we're doing what we're doing today. The microphone, the light, everything was attributable to Thomas Edison, who tinkered and innovated his way with his hands and through trial and error. These are great lessons, I think, in important lives for kids. They need to see this. They need to understand it so they can build upon it. If you don't know your foundation, you don't know what you're here for and what you're fighting for.
And that is so evident today.
You bet.
Evident in our youth culture today.
You
and
bet.
All that's going on. I'm telling you. Whatever happened to Tad?
Tad Lincoln was sadly, at 18, Tad would die of tuberculosis. Obviously, the death of his father, which I don't get into in the book. Look, there's certain, when you're writing for young audiences, you have to kind of frame, Orson Welles used to say, you can differentiate between a comedy and a tragedy by where you drop the curtain. So the curtain comes down a little earlier than Mr. Lincoln's demise.
Right.
But Tad would die of tuberculosis at 18. And his brother Robert would be the only surviving child of Lincoln who went on into adulthood. But again, Tad Lincoln may be the only first child to leave a national tradition for us. And it's a tragedy, I think, that he's been forgotten. So the Magnificent Mischief of Tad Lincoln is my effort to revive Tad and remind people of the origins of this sweet and great tradition.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, you have a family, correct?
I do indeed. 3 kids. Yep.
3 kids. Can you tell us a little bit about your family, perhaps?
Well, my kids are older now. I've got one about to get married, who's 24. I've got a 20-year-old who's in college and a 18-year-old who's about to leave the house. She's a senior. So it's so we're on the latter part of this journey. But as a dad, you remember when they were younger. And that I think parents always have that tension between your work life and your career and you're raising the family, and it all kind of comes at you at once. And this story, and the reason I titled it The Magnificent Mischief of Tad Lincoln, is because we all need the magnificent mischief of our children. And, Mary Todd Lincoln and Abraham Lincoln did allow their boys to bring the country of Springfield, Illinois, where they grew up, into the White House. I mean, they were they were boys. They were kids. They made messes. They broke things. They dug up gardens. They would march around the White House in uniforms. They allowed their children to be children. And just that became the saving grace for these people, particularly in those darkest hours. And so for me as a dad, it was a great reminder to savor those moments, to allow those moments. I think parents today, too often, they want to constrain children, not allow them to explore, not allow them to make mischief, have fun, be kids. And we have to do that. And what that does, I think, is it brings out the best in you. I mean, I get criticized sometimes because I'm like, 7 years old. I mean, if a bunch of kids are around, I'm on the ground with them and digging things up and knocking things over. I like to kind of lead the mischief. But there are a lot of adults who don't feel that way. But look, it keeps your spirit young. It keeps your eyes fresh and new. And we need that, particularly at a dark time when there's so many depressing stories we have to cover, when there's so many awful things in the culture, we want to give kids joy and allow joy into our lives. And children are a wonderful vehicle of that. You know, many years ago, I was interviewing Mother Teresa of Calcutta. I'll say this quickly. And we were in the Bronx. She was visiting, and Princess Diana was in town and I saw Princess Diana had gone into Mother Teresa's house, and Mother Teresa was with our group. And Mother Teresa stopped and grabbed this little infant baby. This woman was holding a baby on the street corner. She crossed over and picked the baby up and kissed the baby and blessed the baby, spent time with the mother, handed it off. And I said, Mother, you know, you got your meeting in here. And she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, children are a sign that God has not abandoned us.
Oh, wow.
We have to respect and reverence everyone. And I've never forgotten that. And I think this story kind of embodies that in some ways.
And your faith as well, Raymond. I mean, you're unabashed in talking about your faith, and you've represented that for years and years, haven't you?
Yeah, well, look, I think your faith is a part, God and faith is a part of all of our lives.
Yes.
What I've discovered also is children are naturally wired. You know, they're wired for God. We all are. Everybody's seeking the transcendent. Everybody's seeking something eternal, something beyond this. And the older you get, the more you realize how passing all of this is and the vanities and the silliness of the world. I think it's an important aspect of life to not lose sight of, no matter what you're doing. Look, I'm not here to impose on anybody. That's not my job to, proselytize people or beat them over the head with faith. But the fact is, faith in God has been this is the motivator of history. It's what moves all of time. And wars are fought over this. Great monuments have been built to it. Relationships have blossomed and collapsed because of its absence or presence. So faith is something important to make note of and to note as we go through life. So I note it. I see it. I try to cover it when I can, because look at what's happening in Israel. How do you process that without some understanding of faith and the history of faith and their clash that happened in this land we call holy?
I mean, that's what I was going to say. Look at what's happening today. It is about faith. It is about religion, quote unquote religion, maybe not spiritual faith. It's about the religions that are taking place, that are at war, the spiritual warfare. I mean, it's hard to avoid now. And it's come to a collision where people have to address it. And it's fighting, and that's the Bible said it was going to happen. We know it's going to happen, and we're just seeing it play out. I'm just curious, how do you deal going on like Fox News and talking about these heavy topics and other places that you do?
Look, Holly, this is why this is why I write children's books. This is why I do Christmas albums, because that's my therapy and escape from the madness. Look, as journalists, you have to cover these things, and they're not pleasant. And at times they're very heavy and dark topics. And, the loss of life and innocent civilians caught in a war zone. And look, in our own country, the crime and the children who go unattended. But we have to also not lose sight of the light, and not lose sight of what history has taught us and our calling to make sure that we don't lose sight of joy and our fellow man.
What else are you doing, truthfully? Are you still doing movie reviews? Are you still doing entertainment stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still, in fact, I'm shooting a movie next week, which I can't tell you about yet, but I'm just a little role, a tiny role. I can't do a big thing. It's just a walk-on. I'm doing a little cameo. And then we'll see. And I may be doing another album early next year. So, so it's all happening. And look, as a kid who loved Frank Sinatra, I saw Frank in concert 30 times and met him a couple of times.
Yeah.
I've always been in awe of that genre.
Yes.
To me, it's the American song, the great American songbook and American vocalist. Ella Fitzgerald, who I saw at Radio City, just blocks from where I am, a block from where I'm sitting now. To be even on the list with these people is like humbling and mind-blowing to me. And so, I mean, I am thrilled and beyond. I mean, it shows you, again, God always multiplies things you don't imagine when you start these little journeys where they'll end up. But to see that list, and there you are with, Bing Crosby, Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Blue Blay, pretty good company.
Pretty good company.
Yeah.
All right, I want to keep it on a light level, but I also want to just ask a serious question, and that is, with all the things going on today and with the country and everything, in your travels, as you speak to so many people, do you still have hope for America? Do you still have hope in the people and who we are collectively? Because we're not the evil that's being portrayed worldwide, and we're not losers, are we? I mean, we still have that American pride. Do you still see it? Because I hope we do.
Well, look, people have to reattach themselves to the foundations of the country and the founding of the country.
Yeah.
And if they do that, all is not lost. I always have hope. Look, when you go into classrooms and you see the wonder and the imagination of young lives, when you see the sparkle in their eyes and the excitement and the joy, you can't help but have hope. And so that is my wellspring of hope, if you will, and my faith. I mean, God never fails. Everything else does. He doesn't. So remember, the founders, who were, by the way, not overly religious men, the founders believed there were two foundations, two underpinnings of this experiment in liberty: an informed populace and a moral people. We must recapture those two attributes of being American citizens. If we do that, we will succeed. If we don't, we are lost.
Absolutely. I loved having you on. Listen, when you get another book or movie or whatever, will you come back and tell us
You
about
bet.
it?
Oh, please, Isaac and Holly, it's a joy being with you. And look, we'll come back. I'll do something on the Christmas show later in the year if you'd like.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's do.
All right.
I mean, like in December, have you back and we'll do the whole thing. Can you sing something for us next time?
Well, maybe I'll give you a clip. I don't know about singing live. There's no band here, guys. You don't want to hear this there, This isn't Tony Bennett. I don't go with two pieces. I bring the whole orchestra.
Okay, where can folks find out about the Christmas tour and where can they get this book?
Go to RaymondArroyo.com. Everything is linked there. But if you want the Christmas album or learn about the tour, RaymondArroyoChristmas.com. Okay. And The Magnificent Mischief of Tad Lincoln, as well as the CD, it's at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and wherever you get your music. Go to Spotify or Amazon Music, iTunes. It's all there. It's all out there and pretty easy to find. The Magnificent Mischief of Tad Lincoln and Christmas Merry and Bright is the name of the Christmas album.
Well, I hope people will pray for you, Raymond, and pray for your journeys. And when they see you on TV, say a prayer for you and all you're doing. And we just thank you so much.
Thank you.
Blessed Thanksgiving and Christmas and amazing things.
Oh, and blessings to you too. And be kind to those turkeys. Thank you, guys. Love you. Thank you so much. I'm Raymond Arroyo, the author of The Magnificent Mischief of Tad Lincoln, and you're watching Faith on Film.
I have been a fan of Raymond Arroyo for many years, so it was such an honor to have this opportunity to have him on Faith on Film today. But now we leave you with another Holly on Hollywood blast from the past. Remember, these are not new or current movies out in theaters, but rather interviews with Hollywood celebrities that Holly got a chance to do several years ago, and the films are good family movies. In today's segment, Holly had the opportunity to sit with Aaron Eckhart, star of the movie My All-American, which is a true story of Freddie Steinmark, a smaller-than-usual football player who made a name for himself thanks to his tremendous grit and positive attitude. This movie is currently streaming on several streaming platforms, including Tubi, where you can watch it for free. So let's go on to Holly on Hollywood, Blast from the Past.
Well, this, first of all, I went to University of Texas, graduated in 1976. So for me, this story is even more personal. My family's from Dallas. So I love how this whole thing was portrayed, this story. And I understand that you went and did a lot of research. In researching it, got the feel of Texas to take on this road.
I was scared to death, taking on Darrell Royal. And I didn't know anything about Darrell Royal and who he meant, what he means to the town and the university and his record. And I got a real good education. Talked to all the former players, talked to Mac Brown, talked to the residents of Austin, and I realized this guy is he's a big deal and he means a lot, and that's his name on Texas Stadium. So I felt the responsibility to try to get it right.
In seeing the movie now and seeing how the story all comes together, I understand you were really touched when you read the script. Is it even more impactful now that you've seen how it's come together and the story being told?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the whole story of Freddie, and whenever you embody and bring it to life is you'd have to be have a hard heart not to be touched by this. And everybody has in their family or in their circle somebody who's been touched by something like this. And how you get through it with a smile on your face and still inspire others, to go live life. That's what this movie's all about.
And I think it'll be really inspirational, don't you, for a younger generation of guys who they realize that there's celebrity that comes to playing sports. But this isn't about the celebrity part of it. This is about being a champion and the real determination that it takes.
Freddie embodied everything that's sort of antithetical to that. He embodied humility and respect and hard work and doing it the right way. I don't want to say playing through pain because there's such a stigma that goes along with that today, but the idea of being a member of a team, you still see it, but it's nice to be reminded of what that means, that what hard work and discipline and how it can reward you, not only while you're on the team, but later on in life.
I understand that after you guys had that football scene that you got doused with Gatorade and they had the whole celebration.
Yeah, I didn't. Because I played Coach Royal, and Coach didn't always have a warm relationship with his players, and so I didn't know how that was going to go down. I don't know if they're going to hit me with the with the canister or the Gatorade. I was happy about that. That made me happy. Wasn't expecting it. The players themselves and all came together. They were a squad. They were a real team, cared about each other on and off the field, hung out together, laughed together, joked together. But, Coach Royal wasn't really a part of that, so I didn't really participate too much in that. I sort of stayed off the side, and so when they doused me with Gatorade, I felt pretty good.
What was your kind of favorite scene to do in film that was memorable for you?
Well, I'll tell you what, was watching Jordan Shipley catch the ball. That dude is a flat-out stud, and he's an All-American Longhorn and meant a lot to the UT program. And whatever we asked him to do was go long, catch a ball, and be in bounds. He did it. I really have total respect for Jordan. Now, that's probably not the answer you wanted to hear.
That's it.
It was all the emotional stuff and all that too, but it was really just about watching Jordan catch the football. It was pretty impressive. I enjoyed the education that I got going through UT, seeing their weight room and their locker room, hearing the lore, meeting the ex-players, hanging out with them, meeting Edith, Royal, and having her blessing, and that was pretty special.
And there's several sports movies that have come out recently, but I think this one's got a difference that's going to appeal to a lot of people. Speak to, because it's really for all ages. But
yeah, that's why I wanted to do the film. Angelo wrote a great script, and I love sports, but it's really about a film that the whole family can go see. Everybody can learn something from this movie and be inspired by it, and son and daughter can talk about to mom and dad about it and really have a good conversation about it. But also, it teaches us, because we're going to come up against these things in life, and how do you talk about those things and how do you get through it? And I think this is a good introduction to that for children.
Write to us at faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. That's faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Faith on Film TV. Also, go to our YouTube channel, Faith on Film TV, and hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications on our latest Faith on Film shows.